December 7th, 1941. A Sunday morning, the sudden Japanese attack on the Pearl Harbor naval base dragged the United States into the Second World War. The nation was in shock, filled with anger and fear, but no one could have predicted the deep and devastating impact this attack would have on America's own citizens of Japanese descent. Overnight, hundreds of thousands of Japanese American citizens were seen as enemies. The government, citing national security, doubted their loyalty, and soon this suspicion resulted in an unconscionable decision that violated human rights. All Japanese Americans, most of whom were American-born Nisei, were to be sent to internment camps. For them, it meant their own country had turned its back on them. But what about those young men who, even while their families were imprisoned behind barbed wire, even as their country turned its back on them, sought to prove their loyalty by paying the ultimate price? This is the unforgettable story of the 442nd Infantry Regiment, the most decorated unit in history, and the Japanese American heroes who fought on two fronts at once. Before the war, large and successful Japanese American communities thrived in states like Hawaii and California. Many were farmers, fishermen, or small business owners. Their children attended American schools and were raised with American values. They felt American. But Pearl Harbor changed everything. With Executive Order 9066, issued by President Franklin D. Roosevelt, approximately 120,000 Japanese Americans on the West Coast were forced to leave their homes and businesses and were relocated to hastily built internment camps. These camps were in the middle of deserts, surrounded by barbed wire. Their lives were turned upside down. Meanwhile, the U.S. military initially banned Japanese Americans from service. They were not trusted. However, thousands of young Nisei were filled with patriotism. They wanted to prove their loyalty to their country, to those who doubted their family's patriotism. Go for broke became their slogan, symbolizing their determination. As a result of this pressure and the needs of the war, the Army changed its mind in early 1943. It was decided to form a special, segregated unit composed entirely of Japanese Americans, the 442nd Infantry Regiment. This unit would be all volunteer. In a strange twist of fate, many volunteered while their families were still being held in internment camps. This was an incredible display of dedication. The 442nd Regiment was mostly comprised of young Nisei men from Hawaii and the mainland. They had different cultures and even spoke different Japanese dialects, but they had one common goal: to clear their names and the names of their families. Their training at military camps in the American South was extremely rigorous. They were burning with a desire to succeed. The soldiers who joined the camp faced a situation of double patriotism. They had sworn an oath of loyalty to the American Army, but they also had to protect the honor of their families. Many soldiers lived with this internal conflict, but every one of them was ready to fight for America. For them, this was the ultimate test of their patriotism. After completing their training, the 442nd was sent to the European front. Their mission was to fight the Nazis and support the Allied forces. But this didn't just mean fighting the enemy. It also meant fighting the racism and prejudice within their own army and in American society at large. They first arrived in Italy in May 1944. The Allies were preparing a major offensive to break the stalemate at Anzio. The 442nd was often given the toughest assignments, as some commanders considered them expendable. These young soldiers were ready to do anything to prove themselves. The 442nd was thrown into the bloodiest conflicts in Italy and later in France. Following the Battle of Monte Cassino In the grueling battles to break the Gothic line, the soldiers displayed incredible courage. They attacked German fortifications, advanced despite constant fire, and captured their objectives. Their losses were horrific, but they never retreated. This unit didn't just do its duty, it showed unprecedented heroism. It began to be known as the Purple Heart Battalion because thousands of its soldiers were wounded or killed during the war. They earned more Purple Hearts than any other unit of its size in history. But the most legendary mission of the 442nd took place in the Vosges Mountains of France in the fall of 1944. The 1st Battalion, 141st Infantry Regiment, a unit from Texas, was surrounded behind German lines and became known as the Lost Battalion. They were cold, starving, and out of ammunition. Rescuing them seemed impossible. The 442nd was ordered to rescue the Lost Battalion. Even their own commanders thought it was a suicide mission. They were already exhausted and worn down from weeks of fighting and heavy losses. But the Nisei soldiers, once again, set out to achieve the impossible. After 5 days of continuous and bloody combat, the 442nd finally broke through to the Lost Battalion. Hundreds of American lives were saved. However, the 442nd's casualties in this single operation were greater than the number of men they rescued. This was the ultimate proof of their courage and sacrifice. When the war ended, the reputation of the 442nd Infantry Regiment was undeniable. The heroism they displayed erased all doubts about their American patriotism. The regiment earned more than 18,000 individual awards during the war, including 21 Medals of Honor, 52 Distinguished Service Crosses, and thousands of Purple Hearts. This was an unmatched record in American military history. President Harry S. Truman, addressing the 442nd at a ceremony, said, "You fought not only the enemy, but you fought prejudice, and you have won." These words officially acknowledged their struggle on both fronts. The heroism of the Japanese American soldiers played a key role in the closing of the internment camps and the restoration of Japanese American dignity. They became living proof of America's commitment to its own values. Their sacrifice helped end an injustice that had lasted for generations. But this story is not just about battlefield heroism. It is also about a nation confronting its own ideals and taking steps to correct its wrongs. In 1988, the U.S. government formally apologized for the internment camps during World War II and paid reparations to the survivors. The Nisei soldiers of the 442nd Infantry Regiment never lost faith in the American dream, even when it turned against them. They proved their patriotism not just with words, but with their blood. Their story is a powerful reminder of resilience in the face of adversity, the fight against prejudice, and the true meaning of being an American. They will forever be remembered as some of history's greatest heroes.